name is Laura Sibilia. I'm the Director of Economic Development for the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. Thank you very much for coming today. We are here to talk about dairy's impact in southern Vermont. I've gotten some instructions from some of my fellow co-organizers. For those of you tweeting, which we will be, we are using hashtag #MoreThanMilk today. And I am now going to welcome up to talk to you a little bit more about today and this event, Commonwealth CEO Tom Moffett and Chair of Dairy Vision, Mark Magnan.
Thank you, Laura. So as Laura mentioned, my name is Tom Moffett. I'm the CEO and founder of Commonwealth Dairy. I just wanted to thank you guys. I wanted to thank all of you for joining us today. As some of you may know, this is a follow-on meeting to the meeting we had last fall in Burlington, where we talked about the importance of milk to the state of Vermont and the importance of dairy to the economy. We wanted to have a follow-up meeting and talk about what milk and dairy means to southern Vermont and southern Vermont's economic activity. Just to give you a brief background on the company and myself, I came to Vermont, about 6 or 7 years ago. We were looking for a place to build a dairy plant to make yogurt in the Northeast. When we started researching and looking into Vermont, we felt we found the right home for the company and ultimately our brand, Green Mountain Creamery. Vermont understands milk. They understand the economic importance of milk, and they understand what dairy means to people, not only in New England, but all of the U.S. I just returned from a trip to the West Coast and then the Midwest, and Vermont dairy products hold a very important role, and they're a very valuable role with consumers in those markets. When you go into a lot of those specialty stores, you see a breadth of Vermont, value-added products, and people, the whole market, the whole consumer mentality is moving towards more specialty, more value-added. Quite literally knowing your farmer, knowing where your products come from, and there's a whole bunch of sort of emotional attachment and well-being that's attached to that. And I think Vermont can play a pivotal role in that process and that development. So Commonwealth Dairy, we started the plant about 5.5 years ago. Never would have imagined in just a little over 5 years that we would be buying over 110 million pounds of milk. Almost all of that milk comes from Vermont. We employ 125 people. Our Green Mountain Creamery brand is the fastest growing piece of our business. It's been just incredibly, successful, again, with those consumers who are looking for products that have meaning to them beyond just nutrition and sustenance. There's so much more to it, and Vermont embodies a lot of what people think of and feel when they want to think about feeling good, being healthy, and having sort of a positive connection not only with the food but with the environment. So we're extremely proud to be part of the Brattleboro community. We've done incredibly well here with our plant. Recently, we entered some of our yogurt into the World Dairy Expo. It's a huge event in Madison, Wisconsin, where I used to live, another dairy state. And 3 of our products won prizes. We won first place for best yogurt in the country. We won 3rd place in that same category, and then we won, I think it was 1st or 3rd place in most unique yogurt. So that's I think a tribute to 2 things: the milk. So thank you for that, farmers, and our employees. They make great yogurt. So I appreciate you guys coming, and I wanted to hand it over to Mark for a few more words.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Mark Magnan. I'm a dairy farmer from northern Vermont, Fairfield. As chair of the board of Dairy Vision, I welcome you to our Dairy Summit. This is our 2nd of such summits that we are hosting, along with Commonwealth and Tom Moffett, to promote and educate people about the benefits dairy brings to our state. Special thanks does go out to Tom and Commonwealth Dairy. I had the opportunity to visit with Tom a couple of months ago, and I firmly believe this region is extremely fortunate to have Commonwealth as a member of its business community. I'd also like to take a minute to talk about Dairy Vision Vermont. In 2012, the seeds of this initiative were planted by farmers. Farmers that realized we were competing in a world market and that we were going to have to run our farms, or quote, our businesses, in a manner where we can remain competitive. Dairy Vision provides farmers access to consultants in the fields of agronomy, the financial field, a veterinarian, and human resources. 4 of the biggest hurdles farmers are facing today. For example, this can involve anything from generational transfers to acquiring new equipment, equipped with new technology to help grow more and environmentally safe crops. Dairy Vision provides farmers the opportunity to remain competitive and viable, something that is good for the farmers, the processors that are here today and in the state, and the Vermont economy. Vermont is known for its agricultural heritage, from the top of the state right down to the southern part where we are today. Dairy Vision will help us keep that alive and well. Thank you.
Okay, so our format today, we have a number of folks. We are really lucky to have Friends of Agriculture in Vermont here to offer some comments about the value of this industry. And then we're going to have a workforce development panel, or a panel that will talk about workforce development efforts in Southern Vermont specifically. So I'm pleased to welcome, and thank you very much for coming, Vermont Secretary of Agriculture, Chuck Ross, to say a few words this morning.
Great, thank you. Wonderful to be here, and for those of you that saw me yesterday, nice to see you again. We had a meeting up in the agency on what topic? Dairy farming and dairying in Vermont. And it's nice to be back in Brattleboro. This is kind of the tail end of my tenure under the governorship of Peter Shumlin, and one of my first events I came to as the secretary was to Brattleboro to be participating in the cutting of a ribbon in this certain dairy manufacturing facility in Brattleboro. And so Tom, I want to thank you and your team and all that you do, because it's an example of what I think is the promise and the potential and the actual contribution that dairy makes to the state and what it makes to our communities in the state. One of my favorite lines is about how agriculture helps build our economy, it helps build our communities, and it helps undergird our culture in this state, which makes this such a great place. And there's fewer better examples in Commonwealth and what they're doing, what they've done, and where they're headed. We were just talking beforehand with Tom and I about, they're building and they're working on brand. And when you have a company like Commonwealth that produces a product like the one they have, and they push that brand, it is good for everybody in Vermont, and it's good for all agriculture in Vermont. And it's an example of why dairy is so important in Vermont, because it leads the way. It is the product that people understand about Vermont. And when you think about, when you look at the statistics that Jackie and Dairy Vision have displayed when you walk in the door, and you read those statistics about what dairy does for the state of Vermont, we have to make sure that we support our dairy economy and our community to be successful. Because if we don't, we're going to undermine what is most important about Vermont. And it's our economy, it's our community, and it's our culture. And that's that working landscape out there that those dairy farmers steward. And the statistics suggest 15% of our landscape, which is 3/4 of our open landscape, is stewarded by dairy farmers in this state. Now that is an enormous connection to other parts of our economy that we cannot ignore. So I want to thank Mark and Jackie and their team on Dairy Visions for continuing to amplify the importance of dairy farming in Vermont. It is critical that we understand it. We have been going through a challenging conversation around water quality that is pertinent to dairy, but is pertinent to all farmers, and is pertinent to all of us in society, because we've all contributed to this water quality challenge. It's not just an agriculture issue. It is a society-wide issue. We all have a role to play, and I'm here to tell you today, the dairy farming community was the first to step up and engage on this issue in a positive way, and they've been doing it for years. Not just the last year, not the previous 2 years, but for the last 5 years, they've engaged with my agency and the stakeholders in our community called Vermont to figure out what they can do to make a positive contribution on this challenging problem. Another example why dairy farmers and dairy farming is so critical. As my former colleague David Mears used to say, there's no better water quality asset than a well-run farm. We've got to remember that. We need to underscore that. So why is dairy farming important? All the reasons I just mentioned. Why is it important in southern Vermont? Well, Tom Moffett and a series of other dairy industries and players are worthy of mentioning, because we think, up there in the northern part of the state, you think about Franklin County and Addison County. Well, that is huge for those communities, but it's also big down here. It's measured by Commonwealth, Maple Brook, Big Picture Farm, Springbrook Farm, and Rob Wheeler and other dairy farmers that are here today. They are vital parts of this community in all the ways I've mentioned. And we cannot think that it only happens in one part of our state, because it happens all over the state. And so it's really wonderful to have this kind of meeting in this part of the state where we can celebrate the importance of dairy to our economy, our community, our culture, here as well as all over the state. So thank you, Jackie, thank you, Mark, thank you, Dairy Visions, thank you, Tom, and the rest of you that are in the dairy business, because you're critical to what this state matters for, why it's a great place to live, in the economy we all celebrate. Thanks.
And now I'd like to ask Jenny Nelson for Senator Sanders' office, so she'd like to say a few words. Oh, yes, she would. Okay, good.
I didn't know I'd get a chance. Hi, everybody. Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to just say hello and to let you know that there's nothing more important to me, and there certainly is a top priority for the senator, that we see dairy succeed in Vermont and continue to grow. There's a worry when you hear that we're down to 809 farms in Vermont, and this is not good news. The more we have farms and farm families, the stronger our communities and the stronger our rural economic businesses will be. The price of milk needs an overhaul. And I can assure you that in the next few months, we're going to do everything in our effort to review the federal milk marketing order system and to look at what is going on at the federal level that can help our local farmers. Just as, I can't remember who it was, said, the cornerstone of agriculture is dairy. And to undermine dairy is to take away from the very foundation of agriculture here in Vermont. There's great growth going on in all kinds of ag here in Vermont, with food hubs and everything else. But the dairy does support the infrastructure that makes everything else work. So I commend you all for being here and to learn what you can. I have loved working with Orly Munzing and the strolling of the heifers. Bernie's loved coming down here for the parades. But down deep and dirty, it all starts with the soil, and it starts with the farm. And if the farm can't make money, and the farm can't support its own families, we're not going to go anywhere. So thank you for being here, and let's keep our minds open and creative. Talk about the creative economy. Boy, we could do some more creation here in the agricultural sector. So thank you for being here, and it's a pleasure for me to be part of it.
Next up, I'd like to introduce and welcome USDA State Director Ted Brady. We're really pleased that you were able to come down today and ask you if you'd like to say a few words. We stuck him in the middle of the room, so it's challenging to get out.
Thank you so much, Laura. So I am the State Director for Rural Development in Vermont and across the river in New Hampshire. And it's really interesting. Rural development is about one little piece of the United States Department of Agriculture. I'm joined here actually by a few other members of the USDA team. Matt from FSA right here from the Farm Service Agency from right here in Brattleboro, and Julie from the office here in Brattleboro, as well as John Michael Muse, the Area Director for USDA Rural Development. What's really interesting, we all know USDA, right? We know Farm Service Agency, the folks that help make loans, the folks that help issue crop insurance and other things along those lines. We know the Natural Resource Conservation Service, the folks that are responsible for giving tools to our farmers to be stewards of the land, to enable them to be stewards of the land. And we know rural development. Primarily for our primary mission of helping to house people, to help build water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure. But what's really interesting is that Congressman Welch and Senator Leahy and Senator Sanders had the foresight to create this agency that recognizes that the farms are rural development, and that our dairy farms are the backbone, the cornerstone, the linchpin, whatever you said, Jenny, of our rural economies. Not just in the actual monetary sense, but also in the sense of the people that show up at town meeting, the folks that serve in select boards, the folks that are the chiefs of the fire departments, the folks that are running the local senior center. It's often a dairy farmer. Sadly, it's often a retired dairy farmer at this point, to Jenny's point about the reduction in the number of farms. But they are the cornerstone of rural development. I work for Secretary Tom Vilsack, and the Secretary likes to talk about the 4 pillars of the rural economy. And those 4 pillars that he talks about are: 1, production agriculture. I think he argues it's the largest pillar. Kind of odd to see a building held up by 4 pillars, one being larger than the other, but production agriculture, milk, corn, you name it in this country. Undoubtedly an enormous piece of our rural communities. Second pillar of that economy is the local foods economy. Interesting to note that local foods, however you define it, is larger than several commodities at this point. In the last 10 years, it's grown that much, so that it's bigger than cotton. It's gaining on a lot of other commodities. The third pillar of the 4 pillars of rural economies are our recreation and conservation and tourism economy. It's the 15% of the land you see in dairy production in Vermont is drawing people to this state, whether it be because their license plates are coming to see our farms, whether it be because their license plates are coming to ski in our national forests, you name it. It's an enormous piece, and a lot of that to NRCS, the Vermont Land Trust, the HCB. And the 4th pillar of that rural economy is, in the Secretary's words, the bio-based economy. And that's a really interesting piece that I think is growing here in Vermont more and more. Whether you see us turning our manure into electricity, whether you see us turning our food scraps and waste into fertilizer and compost and potting material and actual pots, or whether you see us turning our forests and our waste products into wood pellets and our waste wood into wood chips and our forests into incredible furniture and other wood products. What's really interesting to note about those 4 pillars that the Secretary talks about, dairy farming is, as you said, Jenny, and as you said, Secretary Ross, at the base of all 4 of those pillars here in Vermont. I'll end it with this. Tom, I start my morning with your yogurt every day. I owe it all to the general store in Algiers, Guilford, they hooked me on this stuff. And it's really interesting, as I drove down here, I passed 4 milk trucks this morning. I passed a few thousand cows, of course. Passed a lot of beautiful rolling hills. But going back to those 4 pillars and such, what's really representative of the industry, of the milk, of the dairy industry in Vermont, I think are those license plates from Massachusetts and New York that I saw going north. Some of them in old classic cars this morning. But also on the factories you see. USDA Rural Development has a value-added producer grant program. And we helped Kimball Brook up in Heinsberg create flavored milk. We helped a farm in Wells create bottled milk and yogurt. We've helped farms like Big Picture create goat milk caramels and the truffles. I haven't tried the truffle yet. I'm gonna stop there on my way home, I guess. It's really just important to recognize that the dairy industry is represented in the factory buildings, the box truck, not just the milk truck. And USDA Rural Development is here to help and try to realize the future of dairy in Vermont. So thanks, Laura.
And finally, of our distinguished guests, we're so pleased that a member of our federal delegation was able to join us today, Congressman Peter Welch.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. It is fantastic to be here. It's always exciting and it's always challenging when we're talking about dairy. And it's always challenging because it is never easy. You know, we can, in our distant memory, recall when that milk price was above 25 bucks. But that was a distant memory. And whatever is going on, the challenges that the folks on the farm face are ever present. And it's low prices now, it might be bad weather. It's something that really requires the continuous effort of these folks who get the milk produced and then down to Commonwealth, to Grafton cheese, to Cabot cheese. You know, that is a real challenge. And the big challenge that Bernie, Patrick, and I have is to try to get a farm bill that actually has as close as we can get to the high point when we had the Dairy Compact, where there was some production arrangement, where there was some confidence that there was a sustainable, better price. The MILC program is not working right now. It should be triggered, but it isn't. High grain cost, and we always have our farmers dealing with higher grain costs than a lot of other farmers in other regions of the country. That factor has to be much more realistic for the challenges and the real price that our farmers pay. But you know, the farmers do this because it is part of the culture. Ted, it's what you mentioned. It's part of the culture of Vermont. For them, it's a way of life, and it's a really valuable way of life. And those of us in Vermont who don't farm all benefit by what the farmers do. And the big challenge for us is to try to have, in the federal government, a program that is going to kick in at the right time in a reasonable amount so farmers can make it through the ups and downs that are part of the agricultural economy. Now, I was talking to some of my colleagues who don't want to do anything and think it should be the free market, but they forget the lessons of the Depression. You know, the free market's fine, but that is good for Apple. If you know you have more people wanting to buy your iPhones, you ramp up production. If you see a slack off in demand, you can lower production, and you have some capacity to stabilize cost and revenues. When you're a farmer, no matter how efficient you are, this is the challenge. This is how I just admire farmers every day. No matter how efficient you are, no matter how frugal you are, no matter how much you fix your own equipment, no matter how much you depend on your family to help get out there at basically no pay to get the harvest in, you don't control things. You don't control the fact that when we imposed sanctions on Russia, it had a major impact on the price of milk. That's completely out of your control. You don't control the weather. All of these are things that have a direct impact on the day-to-day lives of farmers where they've got fixed costs and big challenges. And that's why you do need a federal policy that gets us through these cyclical times or helps the farmers get through those cyclical times. So I know that it will be our challenge, Bernie, Patrick, and me, when we get into the next farm bill to make certain that we get a better dairy support program that we have now. And I feel very, very strong arguing for that because it isn't the free market. There's a difference when you put your whole life and livelihood, your whole retirement in that land, and you're dedicated to that production. And the benefits to a community are enormous. You know, we are in a tough time economically for some and for farmers, but for a lot of folks who are on the losing end of globalization. And that sense of being out of control, which a lot of our neighbors feel, is in fact best addressed by having as intensive an effort to build a local economy as we possibly can. Because the more we keep in our local economy, and agriculture is a real essential component of that, the more we circulate that money, the more we build local institutions, the more we have a sense of community and engagement with one another. And what we're seeing here with that link between the farmers producing the milk and having it go to the cheese manufacturers, to have it go to Commonwealth dairy, that creates our own market and puts us much more in control of our own future. And it's not just about economic independence, it's about social connection and interaction. So we have challenges on the farm, but you know what? We've got to face them. We've got to do it together. We've got to renew our commitment to Vermont dairy, which is the linchpin of agriculture in this state and has so many incidental and additional benefits for every citizen of this state. And one of the great joys that I've had serving in the Vermont Senate with Senator White, the first committee I ever served on back in 1981 was the Agriculture Committee with Francis Horrigan of Franklin County. And I remember my first visit to the St. Albans Co-op, and you guys couldn't quite understand who I was, this sort of city guy that didn't know how to milk a cow. But what I knew was these are good people. And I've been on this and was part of the Dairy Compact. I remember when Francis Horrigan, and this is the great thing. You guys don't know Gilly Godnick. Gilly Godnick was the mayor of Rutland. And he didn't even know what a cow was. And he and Francis Horrigan sat down together and were the leaders with Bobby Starr to get that Dairy Compact going. So we've got to keep at it. And you know, the work is never done. But the farmer never rests. But when you look at what we've accomplished with the folks in this room who depend on each other to be able to do the good work that they're doing, and we've got that commitment in the General Assembly, we've got it certainly with the Shumlin administration, and you've got it with your federal delegation, we're going to keep at it. We're going to keep dairy and Vermont farming really strong. And I want to say to Chuck Ross, what a great job you've done. We are all indebted to you for how you've managed to keep hope alive with good practical policies through your tenure as Secretary of Agriculture. And I want to say, and I think I say on behalf of all of us here, thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm really pleased now to introduce today's facilitator. We're about to introduce you to a panel that's going to talk about various aspects of the workforce with regard to the dairy industry. So today's facilitator, all the way from Windham, Vermont, is the chair of House Agriculture, Representative Carolyn Partridge. Carolyn will be introducing our panelists. Carolyn is a Democratic member of the Vermont House of Representatives. She represents Windham 3 and was first elected to the House in 1998. She has in the past served as Majority Leader and has a bachelor's degree in oceanography from New York State University. Oh, I did not know that. Or New York University, excuse me. Carolyn currently serves as the chair of the Windham School Board, the commissioner and executive board member for Windham Regional Planning Commission. She's a deacon at Windham Congregational Church and is a member of the Windham Community Organization. She serves on the board of Neighborhood Connections in Londonderry and on the advisory board of Northeastern Family Institute. She recently received, what is this? Received the CSG ERC 2011 West Hall White State and Regional Leadership Award. I'm not sure what that is, Carolyn. Maybe you can explain.
It's not all that recent, actually. It was 2011, but
There we go.
yeah.
She is also chair, as I said, of the House Agriculture and Forest Products Committee. So thank you very much, Carolyn, for agreeing to facilitate this, and we'll send it off to you.
You're very welcome. Now, do you want me to work with that microphone?
I think we do want you to work with this microphone.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. It's so great to see so many friendly faces and folks who I usually only get to see during the legislative session here today. And it's great to have Peter Welch and all of the federal delegation representatives here as well. On top of these things that I do, I'm also a farmer and raise sheep, sell lamb and yarn from my farm. So I understand a little bit about farming. And my job today is to introduce our panelists, which I will do one at a time, and then give them an opportunity to say a few words about their business. So we'll get this kicked off right away with Adam Grinold. Yes. Great. Adam is a graduate of Wilmington High School. He received a BA with honors in history education from Castleton State College in 1995. Adam was the general manager of his family business, which was the White House of Wilmington, until successfully selling the operation in 2008. He currently lives in Wilmington with his wife Karen and their 2 children, Owen and Grace. The summer is a very busy time for the family and their restaurant, Wahoo's Eatery, now in its 16th year of operation. I'll give you a lot of credit for being in the restaurant business. It's a tough one. A lifelong resident of southern Vermont, he enjoys contributing to the vitality of the local community. During the past 20 years, he has served on, get ready for this folks, the Wilmington Planning Commission, Mount Snow Valley Chamber of Commerce, Twin Valley Facilities Committee, Bytown Committee, SevEds, Wilmington Works, and he's been elected to the Petty Memorial Library Trustees, Wilmington School Board, and Twin Valley School Boards. After selling the family business, Adam focused on running his other family business, Cleo's Property Management, until 2011, when he accepted the position of Executive Director of the Mount Snow Valley Chamber of Commerce. In 2014, Adam took on a contract to serve as the Executive Director for Wilmington Works, the newly created downtown designated organization for Wilmington. So Adam, I would invite you to use that mic or this one if it works better for you, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, I'll start with what wasn't included in that. Apologies for the lengthy summary there. It's great to be here today. I am the Executive Director of the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, located right here in the one and only Brattleboro, Vermont. And while Brattleboro is in our name and our offices are located here, we serve the entire Windham region. Likewise, credit is in our name, and I'm sorry to say we don't offer credit. We can help you obtain financing, happy to do that. But what we do is offer significant development services. So as one of 12 regional development corporations in Vermont, we partner with the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, and we deploy those services in partnership with the agency. We're the eyes, ears, boots on the ground for economic development in the region. In recent years, our board has developed some significant capacity both within itself and within the organization for some complicated but highly effective tax-efficient financing development services. We leverage our development services and our nonprofit development services in particular to aggregate some local, some regional, state, national, federal incentives and grants, and through those we're able to help provide some gap financing for projects significant employment-based projects that might not otherwise occur. So when we look to what the region needs, our mission, BDCC's mission, is to ensure there's a vibrant community, and we see that for a vibrant community, you need a vibrant economy, really performing in all industries. And in order for an industry to succeed, it needs to invest in itself. Projects that are just underway now, just wrapping up and in planning, there's over $100 million worth of projects in Wyndham region. That represents over 600 jobs, over 100 of which are in the dairy industry. So those business owners would not make those investments if they didn't have confidence that there was employment in the workforce ready for those investments. So really that's what we focus on. We have many different services, but through our SEVIDS-led initiatives, we are really focusing on our workforce development. That's what we get up each day thinking about. We're fortunate enough to be partnering with all 4 Wyndham County high schools, with the 6 colleges, with other local, regional, state agencies, organizations, all focused on making sure that today's high schooler, today's graduates are prepared for tomorrow's jobs. So I think I'll pause there and look forward to a bit of a deeper dive into the specifics with the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Adam.
You're welcome.
All right, our next panelist today is Ross Gibson. Ross is a seasoned and experienced human resources professional, currently serving as the Human Resources Director with Commonwealth Dairy. I love your yogurt. With over 30 years of experience in the field, Ross has a breadth and depth of human resources, organizational development, and general business experience. Prior to Commonwealth, Ross spent several years as a leadership development consultant with a portfolio of clients throughout Vermont and New England. Before consulting, Ross held several senior level HR positions, including Senior Vice President of Global Human Resources at World Learning, Vice President of Learning and Organizational Development at Charles River Labs, and Vice President of Human Resources at both American Superconductor and Cambridge Neuroscience Incorporated. He is active in several local and regional human resources and training organizations, and is past president of the Northeast Human Resources Association. He is currently serving on the boards of the Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce and the Brattleboro Figure Skating Club. Ross is an active member of the Brattleboro Sunrise Rotary Club. And welcome, Ross.
Great, thank you. And several of you chuckled about the skating club. My 9-year-old granddaughter is a member of the skating club, and she said, "Grandpa, you need to help out." So I did. So that's how that ended up happening. So I'm delighted to be here and represent Commonwealth Dairy along with Tom Moffett and several of my colleagues over here. And please, we brought some great yogurt today. If you haven't had some already, please help yourself. I don't know if Tom is still here, but he mentioned a couple of things. Is Tom still here? Okay, so now I can say this. Tom mentioned that he was traveling all week. As a CEO, he's got a very busy job and represents our company and the dairy industry so well, not just in New England, but across the country. He mentioned that we had 125 employees. While he was traveling, I think we hired another 25 because we have 150, and we're growing. And so the reason why I came to Commonwealth Dairy with the experience I have in human resources, thank you for reading that, is that Tom and the senior management team realized, as he said in his opening remarks, that there's 2 things that make Commonwealth Dairy great. One is having fabulous milk that we can turn into fabulous yogurt, but the other thing is it's about the people. And I think Commonwealth grew so much faster than what was anticipated, and so just kept bringing people in, and created an environment that at times could be a little bit chaotic. And so what we're trying to do now is to bring some order to that. And our biggest challenge, and this is clearly in alignment with what Adam talked about, is not only finding good people, but more importantly, retaining good people. It's such a challenge. Our demographics present incredible challenges in the hiring. As most of you are aware, and BDCC's done such a great job of increasing the awareness about the challenging demographics. So what we're now investing in is making a bigger investment in the people that we have, developing the people we have. We know that people leave for a variety of reasons. but primarily if people aren't being developed, if people don't have hope about future for them to increase their development, if we don't have really good managers who are tapped into that. I was at a leadership session with Senator White yesterday and a group of fabulous young leaders in the area, and we talked about this extensively, that any organization is only as good as the managers and supervisors that they have. So that's what we're committed to doing. We are going to be growing, we are going to be expanding, which is very exciting, and we look forward to continuing this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ross. Our next panelist is Rob Wheeler. Rob is a dairy farmer in Wilmington, Vermont, where he farms in the beautiful Deerfield Valley with his wife Karen, his brother John, and his father Henry. He is the third generation on the farm, which not only produces milk, but also sells maple syrup and offers snow plowing in the winter. One of those diversified farms, right? Rob has served on the board of directors of Agrimark Dairy Cooperative since 2012 and serves as an advisor to their Young Farmer program, which is really important. Rob also serves as a voting delegate and audit committee member of the New England Dairy Promotion Board and serves on the Vermont Dairy Promotion Council. The three things Rob enjoys most about farming are the tremendous variety in the day-to-day work, being able to work outdoors, and being able to work for himself. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Carolyn, and thanks to you folks for inviting me to be part of your panel. I just want to say that, yes, I am, most of what I would say, I guess, is in that. Third generation dairy farmer. We've been there since 1931. My grandfather started that farm in 1931 in our present location. It is, I think, as Adam and Laura, I have to say, we're all part of the same general community, and we all kind of knew each other all throughout growing up and going to school and after that. So Adam and Laura are quite familiar to me, but they're quite familiar with the idea that our farm is probably a pretty serious linchpin to the health and overall viability of the valley, and because of its proximity along a mile stretch of Route 100, and that being a big reason why people come to Vermont, not our farm, but tourism and green open spaces and all that sort of stuff. And I'm looking forward to speaking further on the panel about our role on the farm and my role with Agrimark and Cabot.
Thank you, Rob. Our final panelist is Peter Cole, and he was born and raised on a 50-cow dairy farm in Vermont. Following graduation from Dartmouth College, Mr. Cole returned to operate the family farm for the next 14 years. After selling his registered Holstein herd, he became a town manager, an administrative position that he held for 9 years. In 1998, he combined his dairy farm background with his managerial experience by accepting a position at Holstein Association USA. Currently, he serves as executive director of Association Policy, Industry Affairs, and Governance. His duties include representing the Holstein Association at several dairy industry organizations, both domestic and international, and advocating for policy positions that benefit Holstein Association members and dairy farms across the country. So welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Carolyn. And thank you to the sponsors here, Commonwealth and Dairy Vision, for giving me the opportunity to give you a little bit of insight into Holstein USA and our role in the community. But not only the community, the state, around the country, and even around the world. Because the Holstein Association is recognized around the globe as the world's largest dairy cattle organization. It's a nonprofit member organization governed by farmers for farmers, and it's comprised of 30,000 members across the country. And I think Jenny mentioned that there's 800 and some odd active farms now in the U.S., in Vermont, that are producing milk. 300 of our members are from those 800 farms, so we're pretty well represented there. We've been headquartered on the south end of Main Street in downtown Brattleboro for over 100 years now. The organization has existed since 1885. We have 125 employees at this point. most of them living, some work outside around the country, but most of the majority live and work in the Brattleboro area. And because of that, I'd just like to point out as a regional and national organization, we bring in millions of dollars every year to the local economy, through the wages and so forth that we pay to those people, the taxes, the whole thing that we contribute to. So there's a lot of areas there. Our mission overall is to provide leadership, information, and services to help members and dairy producers worldwide to be successful. As a membership organization, we take that role very seriously. To do that, we utilize our database. We have over 25 million Holstein cattle in our database, the production information, et cetera, on those animals. And we use that information, which is updated constantly, to help provide our members and farmers with data and information and services to help them improve the genetics and management of their farm. So, like Dairy Vision his goal is to help farmers do that. We do a lot of that too. The company started out originally, just registering cattle. We get a fancy certificate for each cow, but that's still, identifying a cow is still the key to the whole thing. But over the years, we've developed far more than that into really a service and service organization to help the farmers more efficiently manage their cattle. And just another side note, we're also responsible for bringing many guests and visitors from the U.S. and abroad to Brattleboro annually, as they're interested in learning more about the U.S. dairy industry and the products and services that we offer. We work closely with the USDA FAS funding to help bring some of those foreign visitors here and work on help improve the balance of trade. Selling cattle, embryos. The registered Holstein U.S. registered Holstein is recognized around the world as the cream of the crop, if you will. And because of that, because of those number of visitors we have here, and just the Holstein Association being here for so long, that puts Brattleboro on the map. Brattleboro is well known around the dairy industry worldwide because of our presence in Brattleboro. And just lastly, I just wanted to mention along the line of job production and so forth, one of the constant battles with the agriculture industry is keeping good people in there, getting our young folks to come along and stay in the industry. All too often, the guys are brought up on a farm like Robert or whatever and end up leaving the farm for whatever reason because the opportunities aren't there. But there's more to, and if they stay on the farm, that's absolutely great, but there's a lot of other facets of the agriculture industry, whether they're working for Commonwealth or some other stuff, any of the food service industry. There's just any number of other jobs that are related to agriculture, and we like to keep them there. So one of the things that we have put in place is a Holstein Foundation. It's just a foundation like others, which is a nonprofit that has their main goal is to support the youth of the industry, our Holstein youth. We have a number of programs in there that help keep the young people interested in the industry, and if they're going back to the farm, that's absolutely great after they get a good education. If the opportunity isn't there for that, then they can get it allied with any number of other organizations and businesses that relate to dairy. And then the other big factor that we do there is what we call a Young Dairy Leaders Institute. That's a program that we offer every year. We have a conference usually down in some nice place down in Phoenix or someplace that's nice and warm in the wintertime. We get the real top-notch people, young people coming up through the industry, and we train them. We give them a really good training and grounding in how to advocate for the dairy industry and how to be leaders in the dairy industry. And it's generally met with rave reviews from the people that attend that. So that's another of our areas to try to encourage people to stay in the industry and work in dairy. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And I would like to take a moment and just call your attention to this booklet that's in it's out there toward the back of the room. It's a really well put together document that was done by the Vermont Dairy Promotion Council, which really indicates the importance of dairy. I suspect it's still true, but when this was first released, it was pointed out that dairy brings $3 million per day into the state. So it's a really, really important industry to the state. And I, as a farmer myself, have experienced some of the sort of secondary effects of having some of our dairy farms going out of business. It used to be that when one of our tractors or implements, which are all just about as old as I am, and you don't want to know how old that is, broke down, I could drive a half an hour, 45 minutes, and get parts. And then it was an hour to Keene to get parts, and then Keats closed down, and now I have to drive an hour and 45 minutes to get parts to Middlebury or up in the Randolph area. So it's really critical to, it's the anchor community, agricultural community, and it has a huge impact on the rest of us who do farm, regardless of what kind of farming we do. And so Rob, I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
In terms of how does your farm fit into the local community? And then when you know, I'm sure you buy some grain, maybe you raise all your own grain, but if you do buy grain, equipment, technology, do you buy it locally? And you know, say a few words about that.
Sure. So I guess the best way to describe it is that our farm is a vital part of the, I feel it's a vital part, and all farms in southern Vermont are vital parts of the local economies. We do employ people, we use the local hardware store, we buy fuel from a local fuel oil dealer, lots of it. And you know, our equipment needs, well, Carolyn said, yes, dairy has been the backbone of agriculture that supported a lot of those services that we all come to, anybody in the walk of agriculture or even everyday life come to expect. Some of those have come and gone, and some are trying to come back, and so we use those services as well. I mean, we're talking about veterinarians and all sorts of experts that we rely on, professionals that we rely on to make our businesses work better, make our dairy businesses work better and more efficiently. And a lot of that money that comes in, almost all the money that comes into a farm, honestly, goes back out to somebody else. And a good number, and several times it's been reported about this Milk Matters brochure, but a good number for all of us to take home is every cow generates about $12,500 in economic activity. And so if you could just multiply that by all the cows in southern Vermont, you'd see that that was a pretty important feature. So, you know, we talk a lot about, in the dairy industry, about what we call the triple bottom line, and the economics is one component of that, you know, the social fabric and involvement in community that farmers bring, but certainly the economic and social component and environmental stewardship that farms bring are very important. And so.
Great, thank you, Rob. I guess I'd like to switch back to Adam and ask you, how does BDCC interact in particular with the dairy community here in southern Vermont?
Sure. I guess I'll start back 40 years ago in elementary school in Wilmington. The Twin Valley Elementary School, formerly Deerfield Valley Elementary School, is abuts Rob's farm. So as children, we literally grew up with the seasons, knowing where we were just from being outside and being able to see and really experience that. We would do tours of the farm probably every other year or so, and it was, you know, as a child, a great opportunity to go inside of this sort of secret world that you didn't really get a chance to understand or see except for those visits. You know, every day we'd have our milk at break and what have you, but to really be able to see how that happens was always an exciting time. So I think I would focus on what the BDCC does for workforce development across all industries and all sectors. And of course, a big part of that here is the dairy industry and the value add to the dairy industry. So what we're really focusing on is convening the employers in the region through our Southern Vermont Roundtable Initiative, and really bringing those folks to the table and saying, what is it about your industry? What do you need in order to succeed? What is going to give you the confidence to make investments to grow your business? And as we hold those roundtable initiatives, as we learn more and more, we're gathering partners in those efforts. You know, earlier we had some folks out here which were our local educators. So, you know, I mentioned earlier we're working with all 4 schools with the fast tracks to success. So this is really a career exploration. You know, you can be told that you can grow up to be anything in the world, and that's very true. But if you're growing up and you want to be an astronaut, you can't live in Windham County. So what jobs are there here? Right. In making sure as the kids go through starting in middle school up into high school with the new proficiency-based learning, with the new career paths, that we're really letting students know of the opportunities that are here in the region, that there's opportunities. And you know, in preparing for this panel, what we're really seeing is that across all sectors, there's a need for an increased ability for employees to be able to work in collaboration with other employees, to be able to, you know, think quickly, that through that collaboration to adapt, and most certainly to be able to adapt to the new technologies as they're deployed in all industries, dairy sector being one of those. So through our efforts, through the working with the schools, we also have our internship program. We have our Young Professionals organization, which is really trying to retain the youth and the young people and professionals who are in the region, making sure that they feel a sense of community and have friends and opportunities. We really feel like we're laying the groundwork to support the dairy industry and all industries, and look forward to future engagements with all those folks.
Thanks. You know, I've chaired the House Agriculture and Forest Products Committee for the last 8 years, and one of the things I think our committee in general has come to is that if we can, you know, because of milk prices and the way they're set federally, and I don't know, it seems capricious at times how it works. It seems like the more value added we can do in the state, the better off we are, the more we can control, you know, our destiny in a way. And I guess I'm wondering, this is sort of a question for Ross, can you tell us, Tom talked a little bit about how and why Commonwealth located in Vermont, but could you say a little bit more about that, and who helped make that happen, and what incentives were available to you?
Sure, and I wish Tom were here because he could explain this a little bit better than I can. But as he had the vision for making yogurt, making great Greek yogurt in particular, he looked all over New England and was in contact with economic development and government officials in several New England states, but it was only in Vermont where the reaction to his reaching out really struck a chord. And from Governor Douglas and other people who were in positions at that time, they took the initiative. They were proactive in working with Tom and his team to bring Commonwealth to Vermont. And Tom would tell you, and I've heard him say this in other venues, that Vermont wanted Commonwealth Dairy to be here, and made it happen. So through both federal grants as well as state grants, loans, I don't need to go through all the acronyms, et cetera. I think a lot of people know what those are. Made it economically viable to bring Commonwealth Dairy to Vermont, tax credits, and it's been very happy to do so. It's very well located in southern Vermont. easy access, which makes a big difference. Having a workforce makes a big difference. We need to continue to do that and have partnerships with BDCC and others to make sure that we're, as I said before, we're developing a very robust workplace and workforce as we continue to grow.
Thank you. And Peter, you talked a little bit about what you do for farmers, what the Holstein Association does for farmers. Can you say a little bit more about that? You talked about the genealogy and or genetics.
Yeah. Certainly. One of the areas, and we talked about value added quite a bit here, and in a sense, some of the stuff we do is value added, not to the milk itself, but to the cattle. Breeding stock is certainly a big part of the industry as well, and we help the farmers by providing an unbiased source of information that is accepted by farmers across the country, and as a result, they can breed a better cattle, whether it's the cows, bulls, whatever it is they're using, and that creates an additional market for those farms to sell cattle, young cattle, or now today's technology, it might be embryos that can be frozen and shipped around the world, or bulls for breeding purposes can be that can be a very lucrative extra market in some cases. So that's created too. And then overall for the dairy farmers in general, most all of the cattle in the U.S. and around the world, frankly, that are really into dairy production are as a product of artificial insemination. So very few bulls really essentially provide the seed stock, if you will, literally to propagate the breed. And whether it's black and white or jerseys, as Rob has here, either way, it's the same thing there. So we play an integral role in collating all the data that goes into that. We have huge databases and just unimaginable amounts of information for someone who's not familiar with the dairy industry on the lineage and the genetics of dairy cattle, and we can put that together. It's way too much for any farm by itself to process into something. So they need somebody there to put that into a product that they can understand, or a service that can be understood by anybody, or even whether it's, in many cases nowadays, it's a computer program, which we work extensively on. We have about 15 programmers working full-time for us, doing that kind of stuff, just to help provide information to dairy farmers to help them do a better job of managing.
Thanks. I think I have a question that I'd like all of you to take a turn at answering, and the question is, how do you find qualified employees? What are the skill sets that are required in your particular line of business? And so we'll just go down the line. Adam?
Thank you. Good ice cream scoopers for me. I think in a broader context, a good employee is an employee that is aligned with the right skills, attributes for the position that they're in. And how we do that is really identifying and making sure people are approaching their career opportunities in the right direction. We don't want to see people misaligned. It doesn't last, it doesn't work. So really making sure that our young employees understand the whole host of opportunities that are available here in Wyndham region. For too long we were told our youth is leaving because there's no opportunities. Well, boy, do we have opportunities. So we're really just trying to flip that around, making sure that all of the students, the teachers, the parents, the professionals, everyone involved understands the opportunities, that the employers are coming to us and helping communicate what it is that they specifically need for tomorrow's workforce, and that we're taking the time to bridge that gap between the education system and employers, both of which have their hands full. They may not have enough people already to run the business. The educators are taking on more and more responsibilities that weren't traditionally within the realm of education. So we really see our role as really just communicating and identifying what those needs are, and we're finding some great success in that.
Great. What's the hardest job that you have to fill? And I'd ask that of all of you as well.
Hardest job that we have to fill.
Yeah.
I think right now some of the bigger challenges are in the professional services that a lot of our employers are having to reach outside of the area. You know, I think on this panel I'd speak to the dairy sciences. In other areas it might be some of the logistics. There's things that our region doesn't do a good job in producing. And we may be producing good high school students who go off to college and go do those somewhere else, and they don't know those opportunities are here.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to change.
Yeah. And how do you get the word out?
We sit on panels such as this. And really, you know, just really creating the network, creating those partners, collaborating, and just really just trying to get out. And with every business, you know, one of the greatest parts of my job is just learning the breadth and depth of the companies that Wyndham Region has, and the amazing variety of things that we produce and all of the jobs that are necessary to do that. So I think it's really just learning about that and sharing it and helping connect the dots.
Great.
Yes.
Russ?
It's interesting when, those of you that are familiar with the history of Commonwealth Dairy, when it was originally built, the plan was to only have about 45 people working here in Brattleboro. And things took off so quickly and so fast that the job requirements for a while were just, if you had a pulse, we'll take you. And seriously, and it was tough. You asked about sources. I mean, we would just go to temporary agencies and say, send us people. It was very challenging. I'm of the belief in my career in human resources that companies can attract good people, and I think we have the ability to do that. We have a good working environment and a lot of things going for us. Again, I think the hard part is retaining good people, particularly with the younger generation in the workforce, the millennials. The millennials now are the largest part of the workforce in the United States, and have a very different view about employment and that employment contract, if you will, with employers. So it really comes down to that. We use a variety of sources to find people, but I just anecdotally, I'll tell you, because I think this is true anywhere, whether it's in the dairy industry, Commonwealth. I work for a large employer, 8,000 people, and I was given the job of heading up recruitment worldwide, 15 countries. Very daunting task. And so the very first thing I did when I took over that responsibility was, I said, where have we found our best employees? Where do your best employees come from? The people, your go-to people. We all know who those people are, right? The highly engaged employees. And so we went. We did an internal study, and we looked at. We defined what a best employee was, and we went through their files, and we literally went through and said, where did those people come from? So I'll ask the group out here. What do you think we found? 70% of our best employees came from the same source. What do you think that might be?
Retired farmers.
Everybody hear that? The answer was retired farmers. But the source of them, whether it was ads or recruiters, what do you think it was?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
It was employee referrals.
Yeah.
If people feel really good about their employer, they're going to say to family members, they're going to say to friends, they're going to say to people they know, come work here, drink the Kool-Aid, if you will. This is a great place to work. And so employers need to create a great environment where their employees feel so good about the workplace that employees become your recruiters. And if you can create an environment, and so I'm committed to doing that at Commonwealth, we have to start with building a strong, cohesive culture where people like Nicole and Scott over there at the Commonwealth table go, you know what, I want my friends and family to come work here as well, and so that's what we're committed to doing. As Adam said, I think the hardest jobs for us are anybody where they require dairy science background, a degree, an experience. We've found the same thing. We have a quality assurance group to make sure that the product that we send out is of the highest quality. Everything's checked before it goes out, and so we have people working for us that have that background, and that's been our biggest challenge. People that work in our production areas, we can find those people locally, and we're happy to do that, and we have a lot of collaborations to do that, but it's people with the more technical backgrounds that we have to reach outside the area to come work here.
Do you interact with the universities and colleges in the area?
Absolutely. We have a very good relationship with schools. We fund a scholarship at UVM and work very directly with their career center in posting jobs, attending job fairs, things of that nature. We work with Vermont Technical College as well. And we look forward to doing more with the schools and right down to the local high schools as well in their science areas to promote what we're doing.
Fantastic. Are you aware of the 2+2 program?
No, not.
Okay, well, I'll have to hook you up with Diane Bothfeld
We'll make a note of that.
afterwards. The 2+2 program, just for people's information, is a program that the legislature has funded, and Diane and Chuck and others have taken a real active role in, where we give scholarships for 2 years at VTC, Vermont Technical College, and 2 years at UVM.
Great.
And our hope is that this will produce people who are going to go into the dairy industry. Our graduates have become dairy farmers. They've become a number of other dairy-related positions, or they've taken other dairy-related positions. And it might be a way to get dairy science. We also struggle for money, so we're always looking for contributions. And I'll give a shout out to the Farm Show, which gave us a chunk of money recently, and anybody else who wants to contribute to the 2+2 program, you're more than welcome. Anyway.
That'd be great. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
look forward to learning more about
Great.
that. Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
All right, Rob.
Yeah, so on a farm level, when we need to help, the goal is to find somebody, because the number one goal is for us on the farm is the care of our animals. The most important thing to us on our farm is the care, and that's a 24/7 thing. Not that you need to work 24 hours a day at it, but it has to be done every day, 365 days a year. So what I find is the biggest challenge is having people commit that they need to be there, and that they can't call in sick, or if somebody else is gone, they need to be there, and that's one of the biggest challenges I find with help. But when you find the right one, it's great, or the right several ones, it's great. And I guess going forward from that, what I would say about the support of dairy jobs in general is that the young people that are looking for the choices that they're going to make going forward in their lives, and what kind of schools they may attend after they get out of high school, there's tons of opportunities associated with dairy programs, and not all necessarily coming back to the farm and doing that work. There's a lot of support involved in, a lot of support jobs involved in helping farmers run their farms, especially in this new advanced age of technology. There's a lot of things that are really exciting with technology that are being employed on our southern Vermont dairy farms, and for a lot of young people, that's a real turn on in terms of sticking around in dairy and being involved in dairy farming in general. What I see in my role as a YC advisor for our co-op, Agrimark, and that YC group is a young cooperator group, and it's members of Agrimark dairy farm families that are 18 to 40 years old. And what I see in that group is a real resurgence in the number of people that want to be involved in dairy farming, and that's it's a real blessing to me. I get really excited to see that, because I have not always seen that in my experience, and right now we seem to be in a real resurgence of ag is in, that sort of thing, and I think technology is playing a big role in why they're excited about coming back to their farms or having jobs related to farms. And so any way that we can support that in our secondary education systems, and that'd be great in terms of the farm level. What I can speak to, and it's not too much, but what I can speak to on Agrimark corporate level is that our biggest challenge probably there is mid-level managers, and dairy technologists, dairy scientists, and seems to be at times a real gap for that. And whether we have the support that's necessary in our own local colleges to produce those people, I'm not sure if we do or not. It would be great that we did have, and that we could keep having a pool of those people that we could tap into and find. I can tell you that with Cabot, like Ross was just saying, long-time company. It's been here since 1919, Cabot, our brand has been. And any opportunity I have to interact with the employees of Cabot, you can really sense a real satisfaction on their part of being involved with a company that's farmer-owned, that they're working to help the dairy farmers of Vermont. They're really dedicated and in many cases very long-term employees. We have really good employee retention. Some of that also has to do with our locations being in somewhat rural areas, and for those rural areas, those are really good jobs for those rural areas, and once they get them, there's a lot of word of mouth that goes on with that, to get other family members or other people in the community involved in those kind of jobs. And it's really good to see the quality of the people that we have working for us. So.
Just as a follow-up, I know as chair of House Ag and Forest Products, one of the issues we've heard a lot about is finding good employees, and we know, even though we turn somewhat of a blind eye to it, that the milking and what have you is being done by undocumented workers. And I know Senator Leahy's office, Senator Sanders, and Congressman Welch have all been aware of this and have worked hard to potentially extend the H-2A program, which is, many of you are aware of H-2A and what it does in terms of our seasonal employees. Many of them come from Jamaica and other countries. But is this something that, I'm not asking you to incriminate yourself. But,
Don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah. But I mean, is this something you hear about in terms of Agrimark and other, St. Albans Creamery, and this, we hear this is a real struggle. So.
Yeah, so I can't speak for all three of the co-ops that operate in the state, dairy co-ops that operate in the state, but I know that it's, just anecdotally, that it's happening, that there are workers on farms that are doing that. We don't employ any immigrant labor. We have, the help that we do have is either family or local help. But there are a lot of dairies that need help, and that's the only resource. Whether they're illegal or legal, I can't speak to that, but that's the only resource they have to do the work that they need to have done. And
Right. Thanks, Rob. Peter, would you like to comment on your employees and where you find them and what the skill levels and requirements are?
Sure. I can be really brief and just say ditto. I mean, these three gentlemen have all brought up good points. My mind is just going around with different things, picking bits and pieces of, they've all struck a chord with me. We have a similar situation. Rob was mentioning Cabot. I went back in the ancient days when I was milking cows myself. I shipped milk to Cabot, and I was proud of that. I mean, that culture is created. Now I'm working for Holstein, and again, I'm proud of the company I'm working for. It's a good place, and that's the culture.
That's right.
And again, as Rob said, we've got a lot of long-term employees, and it's not unusual to have people working for us 30 and 40 years or more, some even over 50 years. But but that's kind of changing a little bit. As we know, the modern society, maybe people are more mobile. It's a challenge getting good people to come in and work. And similar to what Ross was saying, it's difficult sometimes getting people in the skilled positions. We can fill the clerical positions and so forth locally. That's not a problem if it doesn't. But more and more of those require training, extensive training, and a dairy background or at least an ag background is a huge help in that. And so we end up oftentimes going recruiting around the country to get things, to get good people. Particularly for our skilled positions. As I mentioned earlier, we have 15 IT people on staff, and it's always a challenge getting good people in that field to come to Vermont. Vermont has some great things to offer, but if you're a programmer, you can go to Boston or Silicon Valley or whatever, and you can probably make a lot more if you're any good. So convincing them of the benefits of moving to Vermont can sometimes be a challenge. If we get them here, generally they'll stay. But That's the problem. And likewise,
Quality of life issues.
Yeah, exactly, quality of life issues, if you're a young person right out of college and you really want to see the world and whatever, Vermont's a great stopping off place maybe, but it might not be the place you want to settle if you really want to see the world. So convincing people that this is a good opportunity, it really is there, because working for us, many of our people have the opportunity to travel internationally. I've traveled to 15 different countries, working for Holstein, and that's been a great opportunity. A lot of places that I wouldn't have vacationed there necessarily, but it's an incredible education to go to those places. So there is opportunity there. One of the other areas that's as we go up the ladder education-wise, some of the really specialized positions, like in our field. Animal geneticists are almost impossible to find. The universities have not, used to be, the land-grant universities used to have robust agricultural programs, and UVM is one of them, but many of them have scaled that back, and they're not training the advanced people in those kind of fields that we need. So to find a good animal geneticist is they're scarcer than hen's teeth, as they say. So, and then getting them, and also getting those kind of people to come to Vermont. If you're in dairy, you might want to be in Madison, Wisconsin, or whatever. Wisconsin, America's dairy land. But and they have a lot of good cows and a lot of good people out there. We've imported some of them here to work for us in Vermont, and our CEO John Meyer is a good example of that. He's a fantastic leader, and we brought him in from Wisconsin. So that's what we have to do. But we try to hire people locally, and with some of the good programs, we can keep doing that.
Thanks, Peter. Well, I got the high sign from Jackie. This time has gone so quickly. I was going to open it up to questions from you all, but
go ahead if anybody has a question.
Take a couple of questions. Becca, and just introduce yourself when you stand up.
I'm Becca Ballin. I'm one of your two state senators here in Wilmington County, Jeanette White, other senator from Wilmington County, and was talking at a senior forum this morning downtown, and someone in the audience mentioned to me afterwards that Roger Albee, the former Secretary of Agriculture, had an op-ed in VT Digger about trying to transform more of Vermont's dairy farms into organic farms. And I believe the number is at about 5% of our milk currently is produced on Vermont dairy farms. And I'm wondering, what's the promise that's held in that idea of pushing more Vermont farms to push organic farming, okay? And what are the obstacles? Whether it's workforce obstacles, whether it's investment obstacles. It's not in my wheelhouse. I don't serve on agriculture. I'm curious to know, how feasible is that?
Well, thanks, Becca. I know a little bit about that. There's a fellow in the state who has been talking about this for several years from Addison County, and it's been an interesting idea. There's a transition period that has to take place as you transition from commercial grain and feed to organic. And maybe I'll just let Rob, who is a dairy farmer, say a word about that.
So what I'd like to speak to on that is that Roger Albee's been a great servant for all walks of life, but particularly dairy over the years, and certainly respect his opinion. The issue I see and it's not really an issue so much as I think we've all come to expect choices in all walks of life, but particularly our food. And I believe organic is just another choice in what we have for our consumers. And organic is right for some people, but it's not going to be right for some dairy farmers. But it's probably not going to be right for all dairy farmers, and certainly not all dairy farmers in Vermont, for a variety of reasons. And I think what we need to concentrate on is a dairy industry that is united and works together and supports each other and uses all the same support services, that is in business and can support those businesses that we need to have to help support us. Certainly organic is another choice, but there really is no difference between conventional and organic in terms of safety or quality or nutrient content, and so it just really comes down to a choice. And I guess my own personal thing about that is that if we all converted to organic, I don't think our organic producers now would be very happy, because now their product becomes a commodity product and would be priced as such. And
Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind is that the organic industry has a supply management system at work, which basically keeps, they manage the amount of milk that's produced, and that way the prices stay relatively high. So, that's a plus, but, I agree with Rob, it's a decision that each farmer has to make for himself. Jeanette, did you have a question?
I do have a question. I'm Jeanette White, and I would address this, I guess, to Rob and Adam. When you're talking about young people coming here and wanting to stay, this is just a very simple question. The BDCC has an organization called Young Professionals. Are young farmers part of that Young Professionals organization? And if not, why not?
Yes, they are. And,
Okay.
We're often approached by folks who may say, gosh, I'm a mechanic. Is this the right place for me? Yes, it is. I'm pleased to say that I still qualify as a young professional. So we are very flexible with both the age requirement and anyone who considers themselves on a career path is a professional and are welcome. We've got Avery here, who's on the steering committee from the Young Professional Group, Sevit's board member. I don't know if you want to speak further to that.
Basically, yeah, it's an open group. I think, like Adam said, we encourage and invite anybody that wants to come to our events to join. And
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris, and this can be our last question. Chris Campany.
Chris Campany, Wyndham Regional Commission. In a former life, I was Director of Ag Economic Development for Orange County, New York. And one of the things that we did was develop a detailed ag economic development strategy for the county. And that was in response to a few things. After 9/11, we experienced a surge of growth out there. And so industry looked at farmland and farmers as holding just kind of temporary tenants of the land until they could put distribution centers on the farms. Residential developers look at it just holding pattern until you put subdivisions on the farms. And then on the conservation side, everybody's looked at it as open space. And everybody assumed they knew the farmer's business, but nobody had ever actually researched it. So it wasn't on equal footing with all the other businesses and industries in the county. And so that's why we did this detailed economic development strategy. And ultimately this was really for the farmers, because anecdotally they thought they understood their business and the business of their neighbors pretty well, but as farms were diversifying, there were a lot of new things happening. And so they wanted to look and see what new infrastructure do we need, what are the new opportunities that exist out there, what are the assets to be built upon. We know change is coming, how do we not just kind of get run over, how do we harness that? And I know statewide there's a lot of excellent studies and strategies that have been developed, but I guess I'd like to just get a sense if you guys think it'd be useful to do more detailed strategies for different areas of the state. And this wouldn't be necessarily region by region like regional planning commission, it'd be more like farming regions of the state, places that are more similar than dissimilar, to really get into, detailed information. We were interviewing, virtually all the farmers in the county, trying to get their take, but then detailed economic analyses using different databases, that kind of thing, to really come up with actionable things that farmers could do, but then also that the government officials and planners and other folk could do to really support the industry and the businesses as an industry and businesses having on the same footing. I guess I just want to get a sense of, I'd be happy to kind of work with folk to try to see if we can get a big USDA planning grant or something to do that, if folk think that would be something that would be helpful. If not, we'll spend time elsewhere, but just curious.
Something else for Wyndham Regional to do. Comments?
I defer to my fellow panelists on that question.
I would have no issue with that. I think that's probably a great idea.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know whose services you need to employ to help make that happen, whether it's BDCC or Windham County Farm Bureau or co-ops or what you need, but I don't have an issue with that.
Maybe it's everybody.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. I've written it down, and I'll be talking with you as the Wyndham Regional Commissioner, Chris. I think we need to wrap it up right now. I want to thank our panelists for coming and being a part of this. I, as a state legislator, would also like to encourage anyone in the room, if you have ideas, I say this to my own constituents all the time, and by the way, I have no idea. Leadership is going to change totally in the state of Vermont, in the legislature this coming year, and I have no idea if I'm going to be chair of House Ag and Forest Products. I hope I am, but you never know. But if anyone in the room, you guys have any suggestions for what we could do or what we could take a look at, I would really appreciate it. Please don't ever hesitate to talk with us. You know, one of the things we worked on, my committee worked on in the last several years was the Working Lands Enterprise Initiative, which I think has had an incredible impact on the agricultural and forest products sector of the state. And I thank Secretary Ross and Diane and Jolinda LeClaire and everybody at the agency for standing that program up. But that's an example of something that came to us from somewhere else. And so I would encourage you all to contact us. Thank you all for being such a great audience, and thank you panelists for being so helpful and informative. Thanks, John.
So I get to wrap up and send you all on your way to eat and drink and talk to everybody that's around here. My name is Jackie Folsom and I work for Dairy Vision Vermont. I would like to thank all the speakers that we had this morning, Chuck and Jenny for Bernie and Ted and Congressman Welch. And also thanks to the panelists and Carolyn, you folks did a yeoman's job. One of the things that we wanted to highlight was the partnerships of different kinds of people who all are connected to the dairy industry. And the other piece was also the job creation. And I think that there was a nice complement of all the different partnerships that take place down here in Windham County. I really liked Chris's comment because I reconnected with an old friend, John Michael Muse, who I knew years ago when I did agritourism. And the first thing he said to me was, why don't we get a plan going to talk about economic development for agriculture in Windham County? And there you go. So you got to make it happen. I want to see the report in a couple of years here. This event could not have happened without an outstanding team. And I live in Cabot, so I was at a total loss as to what was happening down here in Windham County. However, Representative Laura Sibilia was my yeoman down here. She knew everybody and everything, and she was a great contact, so thank you, Laura. I had two great people from the New England Dairy Promotion Council, Kylie Putnam and Jenny Carl. Raise your hands, ladies. They were the ones that got the media here, that worked with the Brattleboro TV, and just made it wonderful. And Nicole Scanlon, she was my go-to lady from Commonwealth. Anything I needed, oh my gosh, we forgot something, she was right there and she was ready to go. So thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the dairy farmers who came here today. I think, is there three in the audience? There's Jane, there's Jenny, there's Heidi.
Mark.
Rob, Mark. Who else have I forgotten?
Reg was here.
Reg, yeah.
Reg was here earlier, so thank you guys for coming in. Please interact with these people. Interesting to hear, Chris. I'd like to talk to you more about what you did out in Orange County, New York, because farmers aren't that easy to get to talk to. They're awful, awful busy. And so when you try to find them this time of year, God bless you all for being here and not in the cornfields. It's really important to have that conversation. I wanted to have another hat that I wear as the manager of the Vermont Farm Show, and just because the 2+2 program was mentioned, I'm going to throw out a challenge to the businesses that are here. As Diane and Carolyn said, the 2+2 program is a great program that is mostly funded through the Vermont legislature, and this year the Vermont Farm Show, which admittedly happens up in Essex Junction, Vermont, it's a long way away, but Scott was there last year with Commonwealth Yogurt. We had a little bit of a kitty, and so we have donated one scholarship
for a student, 1 4-year scholarship to the 2+2 program, which is 2 years at Vermont Technical College and 2 years at UVM with a semester thrown in at minor. So I'd like to challenge the businesses or the groups that are here to match it, because we can't always have the industry not step up. And so I think it's important that we do that. So the 2+2 program is a great way of making sure that we've got young people in the pipeline to do what we need to do as we work on all these things that we've talked about. Thank you very much for coming. I think it was a great day for dairy. It's a positive industry. We have a lot of positive partnerships, and I hope that you'll all talk about how they can continue down here in Windham County. Thank you.